So I'm here to talk about React and web components. How it is, how it could be, and as I understand it, because we all deal with the web and things are always changing. So I kind of like to just put like little timestamps because this is as I understand it at this point. Because there's more things that I'm actually looking into that are pretty awesome coming up. And so I may give a talk about that later. All right. So hi, I'm Dwane, a JavaScript developer advocate at Vonage. And I figured I want to come and talk to you all about web components. So who's heard of web components? Just raise your hands and stuff. Oh, very nice. So I'm going to need y'all afterwards to let me know what I got wrong or your experiences and why or why not you're using them and how you're using them. So then I'm going to assume who hasn't heard of web components. All right, cool. Oh, then why am I here giving this talk? Cool. So let me know if you find any value in this and how you want to use it in the future or what have you. All right, so real quick, how many people are using React? Just curious. All right, OK, a good few. All right, cool. So then this will make sense to folks. All right. So now, if you've ever used like the video element or the audio tag or the details element, I always found it interesting how just by putting the tag and like a source for the video element, you get a fully functional video player. You didn't have to create the play button or the pause button or listen for those events, the mute, any of that stuff. It's all just built in. I always thought that was kind of awesome. Same thing like the audio tag or even the details tag. Details low-key, one of my favorite HTML elements. You get a drop down just built in. Amazing stuff. All right, that's just me, I guess. All right, but now imagine if you can create your own element, right? Whatever you imagine, being able to just create something and you put it on a page and it just works properly. Once you kind of understand that, everything becomes like a web component. So I like to make a lot of projects, right? Sometimes too many projects. And for each one of those, I wanted to have an about page, right? But having to create one individually for every one makes me not want to create anything. And I just want to make, right? And just make it, put it out there. And so I was like, web components. What if I created a web component and called it Dwane-made to where I can put that on every project and it's responsive, so it does what it needs to do. I only need to do the work one time. And so on each project, I just call an endpoint on each one of the different projects, fetch the data about the project, and it will format everything the way it needs to be in the web component. So I don't have to worry about any of that stuff ever again. So I can create, have the about page, and I'm good to go. So that's one of them. Being reusable is one of the main reasons I really like web components. Another reason is that you can use the same web component for multiple uses. So kind of like the Swiss Army knife of like web stuff. And so another cool like element that I always thought was amazing was the humble input button. Just by changing the type, you can radically change the feel and the usage of it. Anybody else thought that was cool? Is it just me? I'm the web nerd here. Is it cool? OK, maybe. All right. But I mean, just like you have a button. And we all know working with date and time is just terrible on the internet. You get a calendar that tells you the date that it is now. Imagine having to do that yourself. Terrible. And then there's time and everything as well. And then we have the range. And then this one, the color, a color picker. I don't know how you would do that in CSS. That just seems like a lot. So again, I just find these things fascinating. And I get to talk about them. So along with the multi-use, like I said, working with time has always been like a pain for me. So I was just like, I need to just do this thing once, and I'll be able to use it in whatever projects I need to as well. So if you can see like this Sunday, February 20th thing, that's this web component here. This countdown timer, 4:32, same web component. And then here also. So I created this web component to where, depending on how far in the future it is, it will show you the date and the time in your local time zone. And then once it reaches a certain like limit that you can set, I do like 60 minutes, it will turn into a countdown timer. And then it'll count down to the time where it's supposed to be, again, in your time zone. And there's like a whole lot of time zone math stuff that I don't want to get into again. Did it once, it works, never have to do it again. So again, multi-use and being reusable, two of the things that I really like about web components. And those are the things that are always kind of running in the back of my mind as I'm doing stuff. Like, am I going to do this again? And if I'm going to do it again, will I do it in different ways or what have you? So that way, for me, makes good use cases for turning something to a web component. Now, one of the coolest web components I've ever seen is model-viewer. Anybody seen this before? Like, yes, you know how awesome it is. So, without knowing any sort of 3D modeling or having to worry about AR, XR, WebXR, virtual reality, none of that, you get it all built in. And then you can just kind of mess around and play with it. This is amazing. Now, you may be thinking, oh, that's cute. It's a little lo-fi poly thing. Well, they stepped it up. They actually scanned Neil Armstrong's suit. And look at the reflection in the helmet. That is so cool. And so, yeah, so you can see the bottom of the shoes. It's kind of amazing. And so, just to get it working, you import a little bit of JavaScript because the browser doesn't understand what model-viewer is. That's just not a regular element. And so you need the JavaScript to kind of tell it, like, OK, don't worry about it. This JavaScript is going to tell you what to do with it. And then just here, you put the model-viewer tag. And then, of course, we got to be accessible. Shouts to Anurada. You put the alt tag, and then you put what it is. And then you even have like a poster image. And then the source is the actual, model for it. And then you get this. This is amazing. And it's not only for viewing like cool Web 3D models. Also, you can put it in WebXR, so that's augmented reality and virtual reality, which are things that I've been a big fan of as well. So I was like, I wonder if I can extend this a little bit further. And so I created a WebXR tic-tac-toe game with voice chat. And so again, I know nothing about WebXR. I think it's cool. It's a lot of work, and I don't have the time to do that work now. So I'm just going to have this web component do it for me. And so I'm just going to kind of play this video really quickly so you can kind of check it out. Because if you want to play afterwards, let me know, because it's deployed, and you can beat me in tic-tac-toe. I have swag, and if you beat me, I'll give you shirts or something, or socks. All right, so here's this quick video. So you can see right there on my tablet, I have like the virtual reality version of it. And then I'm also recording through my phone, so you can also see the augmented reality version. And so what I'm doing is playing a game of tic-tac-toe, and I'm sending the moves back and forth through our Vonage APIs. And so I'm able to kind of keep each board in sync with it. And so it's not only is it cool to like see it, but you're also able to pass information back and forth between it. And so, again, I didn't have to worry about any of this stuff. It just worked, and which was amazing. And then I think I'm going to like win at some point, neither here and there. But there's also, you can enable audio chat, because there's nothing more than like hearing the person you're beating like squeal. And so, all right, so then that's that, and then it wins or what have you. All right, cool. Now, professionally, because we talked about the stuff I did like personally, cool things that I thought would help with web components. So I'm a JavaScript developer advocate again at Vonage, and I handle a lot of the client SDK stuff. And a good use case for that is creating like chat apps, right? And so instead of having people having to create the different like the divs or the sections for their chat app, I figured, well, why not just encompass everything into different elements so that each element is responsible for its own actions and listening for events or sending events. And so like we have the VC messages, and it lists all the different messages that are sent in the chat. Then we have the VC members. That takes care of all the members who are there, and if they leave, it removes them. And if they come in, it adds them. And then we have the VC text input, where it is you just put in your text message and hit send. And then we also have the VC typing indicator, which shows like who's typing while they're typing. What's cool is now, let's say if you wanted the VC members on the other side of VC messages, they're just HTML tags. So in your HTML, just move it to the other side, and you're good to go. Again, you don't have to worry about listening for events or anything. They all handle their own tasks that they're responsible for. So that's another cool thing. So there's that. Now, another one, this is actually like the first one I created, because like typing in like numbers and like things is kind of a pain because you have to listen for every button or what have you. So I was like, well, to make it work with our client SDK a little bit easier, because you can also like make phone calls with our client SDK stuff. So I wanted to be able to have something where people just put it on their page and then you have a keypad. So if you want to make calls or maybe enter in a code or what have you, you don't have to worry about it. You just put that there and it does what it needs to do. And so these are some of the things. I used OpenWC, which is a pretty cool like framework for creating web components. It sets up the structure for you and everything so that if you're on a team, everybody's on the same page, because there's a bunch of ways of creating web components. And so you can explore and find something that you find that fits your needs. But if you're on a team, you know, just remove all of the choice. Just everybody's on the same page and we can get this thing done. And so OpenWC is pretty cool for that. And it uses lit, which is like a rendering library for web components. Cool stuff. And then I have all the different properties and attributes on there. So that like you can change the placeholder. That's the text here. And this is actually in my thing here. This is working because it's just a web page that I do for my presentations. And then we have the method where you can create the action, which will turn this to the cancel event. And then we have some custom events here as well. Cool. Now you may be asking yourself, oh, that's fine, Dwayne. That's good for your little project, little side projects. It must be nice, right? You may be asking, well, are web components a thing yet? And I was kind of asking that as well. Shouts to Westbrook J on Twitter. He told me about this website, Are Web Components a Thing Yet? .com. And short answer, yes. Now, I'm going to need some participation here. I'm going to scroll this page. And every time you see a logo of a company that you recognize, please say ding. All right? So you see a logo you recognize? I know there's like a delay with the translation. So you see a logo you recognize? All right, cool. So here we go. Keep the dings going. Nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for participation. Now, let's talk more specifically about like YouTube. A lot of people use YouTube, right? If you ever look at the source code of YouTube, you see all these random YTD things. YTD hyphen rich hyphen grid hyphen row. Means nothing to me. But to them at YouTube, it means something. And so that's a good way of saying like, oh, that's a custom element because I have no clue what that is, so it must be something meaningful to them. That's why it's a custom element, which is cool. So yeah, all throughout YouTube. GitHub, they actually created a set of web components that you can use yourself called time elements. And so the way they use it is that if you ever like pushed a change or like did a PR or what have you, it'll say like however many seconds ago or however many time ago. Those are web components. And you can see right here it says like time hyphen ago. And so even GitHub is using it also in their website. Now, what about browser support? You know, do you need like the bleeding edge of whatever random browser? Nah, pretty much any modern browser has support for web components, which is great. All right, and then I have source links. You can check out webcomponents.org, you know, fact check me. Now, so how it is with React, not so great. Now, there's two main things that web components kind of have to do. They have to handle data and handle events. So the data going into your web component and then the events coming out of it. Now, the current React, all data, basically, they handle like attributes. So they're basically strings. So that's cool if you're just using strings. But let's say you wanted to have like an array or an object. Have you ever gotten that object thing, the error, which is just so frustrating? So that's what's going to happen. Now, there's ways around it, and you can do it, but it's kind of a pain. And then because of the synthetic events system, I think it's called, you can't just listen for events coming out of like elements normally. You have to use like useref or whatever it was, right? But now, this is how it could be. There's an experimental branch of React. How many people knew there was an experimental branch of React? Exactly, that's why I give this talk. And so I'm just trying to gain awareness and just grow awareness that there's this, it's there for you. And so, as you can see, it passes everything, everything is great. Like even the events, you can have like was it like camel case, Pascal case, snake case, all the cases. And so it's fully supported. It's kind of awesome. So I kind of want to talk about like some of the benefits of full support. And I'm the type of person I always like to think of others. So won't somebody please think of the maintainers? Because you have people spending their time, their free time working on projects to kind of make our lives easier, right? So why have them work on a full set just for React, right? And so because I'm not talking about me, because with me, you're going to get a pretty good like GitHub repo that explains everything and how to use it and everything, even the diagrams. This took me a while to put together. So you're gonna know how this works, right? And then also I write blog posts, so using web components in React. So I talk about all the ways, from class, function, to everything, hooks, everything, all of it's here, right? And you can always reach out to me on Twitter. We actually have like community channels at Vonage, so you can reach out to us there. I do workshops, and but I'm talking about people like Corey LaVisca. This is a hero. He has this really cool Shoelace web component library. Has anybody seen or heard of or used Shoelace? It's pretty awesome. So actually that QR code that I showed earlier, that was a Shoelace web component. You just put it on there. So if you're looking to generate web components easily, this is pretty cool. But yes, also it's kind of cool. So I noticed on the site, so it's a forward-thinking library of web components, right? And it says works with all frameworks. All these things, with CDNs, blah, 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 blah. Then what I noticed was that first-class React support. And I was like, I had to reach out to him. And so on the page, look, under React, Shoelace offers a React version of every component to provide an idiomatic experience for React users. You can easily toggle between HTML and React examples throughout the documentation. And you look at Angular and Vue, they're literally the same sentence except that you replace Angular and Vue. Plays nice with custom elements. You can use Shoelace in your Angular apps with ease. But you see all this other. So I was like, I reached out to him on Twitter. I was like, yo, are you not bothered by having to like recreate twice, double your work? Him being the nice guy's like, no, you know, once I do it once, it's fine. It's no big deal or what have you. But then he actually said one of the biggest gripe is that he has to maintain now 2 different examples with demos in the docs. And so it makes working on these things much slower. So yeah, let's think of the maintainers. Now, what about yourself? You gotta think about yourself. Because I don't know about you, but it feels like sometimes React makes you jump through hoops just to use web components. And if you like this, I might make it an NFT and I'll put it up so anybody's interested. Kidding, no, anybody? Okay, cool. So sometimes it just feels like you have to go jump through hoops to get it done. So for example, I have links to an actual working stack blitz, but this is a piece of the code. And so that's that use ref that we spoke about before, because React doesn't have, they create their own synthetic event system thing. So now in order to get a reference to your element, you have to do use ref, right? And then you have to use use effect to be able to add event listeners to it. And then you have to return the things that remove the event listeners. And then you actually have the web component here, and you can see the action text is just a string, and that's a string. But if I had to do like an array, I would have to do this other thing with the thing and the current. It's just a lot. So there's that. But now, how it could be, that's it. You just put the element. That's all. And then you just do the same thing, and you have the on digit hyphen added, again, with the snake case or however you want to do it. It's just, that's it. There's no use ref. There's nothing. It's just that. So with that said, yay? Yay. Boo. Boo. All right, thank you. You have to kind of like go like remember these things. I'm trying to make different ways of remembering these things. All right, so future proofing. Like I mentioned before, if you've used React, you may have remembered that just in version 16, there was like 3 different ways of getting a reference to your elements. And you saw before, if they have full support, you don't have to worry about any of that. So future proofing is another option. And then also styling, because it's cool to have your elements and they're all looking like, but what about styling everything, right? So there's a couple of ways. There's the CSS custom properties. Who's used it's also called CSS variables. Who's used? Pretty awesome, right? Now the thing is that I have this example here, button. So you just set the button and you have like a background color. Then you have var, and then you have your variable that you want to use for it, and then like a fallback color, what have you. Now, that's cool background color. What if you wanted to do the radius? Well, then you'd have like the radius, and then you'd have like the var, and then you have that. Well, if you want to do the font color, then you have the font color, and then that, and another thing. And if you want to do like the font size, and it's that, and another thing, or whatever. You may forget something that, you know, like you want the person to use. Or maybe you don't want them to be able to change it. It's all up to you. But there's also the part. Who's heard of part? See, that's awesome, right? Super cool. So same example, except you name your thing, you put part, and then you just give it the name of part. So like button, I just called it button because that makes sense. But you can call it Isaiah. I don't know, call it whatever you want. And so when your custom element, when you define it, you put custom element, colon, colon, part, and the name of the part. And then style it however you want. It's just, that's it. You just do what you gotta do. It's amazing. So it's free form, which could be good or bad depending. I like people to have total say whatever they want to look like stuff. So that's just me. But if you want to have some control, you can use the CSS variable stuff. All right. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. All right. So let's see here. So this is the VC text input. So let's take a look at HTML. So you can see I just have a little bit of JavaScript here so that you can tell what to do with the VC text input. And then I have that placeholder again. So let's say you want to get aggro and you really want people to know about the placeholder text. And then hopefully, there we go. All right, now let's take a look at the CSS. So again, I'm just going to remove this. So you see VC text input button, and that's this here. I don't know why you want it to look like that, but again, do what you got to do. It's fine. I'm not here to judge you. So yeah, so you can see, you can make it look however you want. Next. Now this is the VC members thing that I was talking about before. You know, it's kind of, it looks classic, you know, it looks clean, looks nice. But now, what if you want to do, it's going to look, now that's rock and roll. That's just awesome. And so, yeah, so you can see I changed like the list style disk. I don't even know if people even do that, but I just did it. Then also, so the part, each one of these LI, I call it LI because they're LIs. And I just changed the color to black and the font size made them larger. Now, sometimes you may have to run into issues where you have to use custom CSS variables. And so for example, I could not find a way to change like the even and odd parts here using by part. I don't know if somebody knows a way, please let me know. But again, as far as I understand it, I don't think there's a way. And so, so I just have my VC members nth child odd color, and then it's green and then blue. So I was able to set it using that way. So sometimes you may need to use both. It kind of depends. All right, cool. Then here's the VC keypad. Now check this out. So how it looks normally, right? Just entering numbers, yada, plain. But what if you wanted to turn it into like a keypad, like a gamepad, and bam. Oh wait, no, there's another one. And so then you can like pew pew and shoot asteroids or whatever it is that you want. All right, cool. So I think we're all here because we believe in the web. So I am once again asking you to believe in web components. And yeah, so thanks for having me. I created this random website because again I create random websites. And so webcomponents.in was available, so I had to buy it. And so /React for real. And that list, that goes to the, it has a link to the actual GitHub like repo thing where they're talking about the experimental version. So if you could like let them know like, hey, I think this is cool. Could we maybe rush this out? Let's get this working because I like web components. I want full support. You can let them know. And that's my website. And yeah, and then that has a Dwane.in/Vonage has a bunch of links and stuff to like how to use web components in various things. And yeah, thank you.